In today's video, we're going to take a look at the 10 most dangerous prison inmates in the world. Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. Alright then, let's dive in. At number 10, we have an unapprehended mobster, Dawood Ibrahim. He was charged with multiple criminal acts like terrorism, murder, targeted killing, extortion, and drug trafficking. His organized crime business is called the D Company. His criminal acts began when he was just a teenager. It started with petty robbery and theft. However, once he gained control over the goons of Mumbai, he shifted to serious crimes like murder and trafficking. Even in the 1990s, his gang had over 5,000 members who generated a revenue of more than hundreds of millions of rupees because of their crimes. After the 1993 Mumbai attack, he was named part of the mastermind for that attack, following which he fled to Karachi. He was then also believed to have connections with the Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden, which made him a wanted criminal in the United States. He was arrested in India, but he escaped and is still alive somewhere in Karachi, roaming like a free man. Number 9 is Andrei Romanovich Chikatilo, who goes by the nickname Rostov Ripper. He is a dangerous criminal who murdered at least 50 people between 1978 and 1990. He was told as a child by his mother that his brother was captured and eaten by the neighbors. He also lived during the aftermath of the Ukrainian famine, where many people resorted to cannibalism. Although the effect of these on his crimes cannot be verified, these stories motivated Chikatilo to cannibalize some of his victims. Before his crimes started, he was a teacher at Rostov Liberal Arts University, but was forced to resign because of some sexual assault complaints of Chikatilo on children. His killings began in 1978 and mostly victimized young people he met at rail stations and bus depots. He was arrested when he was seen to be molesting a girl at the rail station. Later, when he was arrested, he confessed to 52 crimes and was sentenced to death. The movie Citizen X based on his life. Next up was Eileen Wuornos, an American serial killer and sex worker termed a true monster by the general public. She was convicted for the murder of 7 men who were shot at point-blank range. Her childhood was rather tricky. Her father was convicted of child molestation, and a few years later, he killed himself in prison. And the mother abandoned her when she was young. She began trading sexual favors for money and had her first child when she was only 14, but the child was given up for adoption. She was kicked out of her house after this incident, and later, her brother died of cancer. After this, she fled to Florida to become a prostitute. She unusually blamed the men she dated of rape and then shot them at point blank. She was convicted, sentenced to death, and was later killed by lethal injection. You all must have heard or watched the 2017 blockbuster movie It. Did you know that this movie was actually based on a true story? Yes, you heard me right. It was based on John Wayne Gacy's life. He started his crimes by becoming a clown for children's entertainment and used it for charity purposes. He called himself Pogo the Clown. But little did we know that under these colorful costumes lived a remorseless avatar who killed 33 teenage boys and young men. They were kidnapped, held at gunpoint, and were forced to engage in sexual acts with Gacy. He was convicted by his crimes and was executed by lethal injection in 1994. Number 6 is Jason Barnum, famously called the Eyeball Man for his tattoos. He appears demonic because of these tattoos, including one of the white of his eyeball. He was convicted for shooting and wounding a police officer. The court believed that his offenses were motivated by his need to satisfy a heroin addiction. He was sentenced to a total of 22 years in prison for his crimes. Number 5 is Charles Neg. He was a Chinese serial killer. He was the son of a wealthy company executive and was a Marine officer. But reports show that he was harshly disciplined and abused by his father, and as a teenager, he was described as a loner. While he was working in the Marines, he was charged with the theft of heavy weaponry and machine guns. He was put to prison for these crimes. One might think that he must have had some remorse and go back to everyday life, but the exact opposite happened in this case. He reunited with one of his old friends, and at a cabin in the woods, these two captured, raped, and tortured more than 20 victims. They filmed themselves torturing their victims. When his crime partner was caught and was found dead in prison, Neg was identified as his partner and was convicted. Neg's trial was lengthy, and it cost California approximately $20 million. At that time, it was the most expensive trial in the history of California state. Charles is now on death row at San Quentin Prison. Number 4 is Randy Stephen Kraft, aka the Scorecard Killer, is an American ephebophile serial killer and serial rapist. During the 1970s and 80s, many dead bodies were found near highways in California. The victims were all males who suffered from some sexual abuse before being killed. Kraft was arrested for suspicion of murder, but was released due to a lack of evidence. California police captured him because he was driving under the influence. Upon inspection, the police found a dead body in Kraft's car, a U.S. Marine office, and Kraft's final victim. His modus operandi included strangulation, asphyxiation, sexual abuse, and even castration. Ugh. He always kept a record of his victims in unusual pornographic poses and hence got the nickname. Before dumping the bodies on highways, it was noticed that the victims were always barefooted. It was concluded that he also had a foot fetish. Although he was convicted of 51 rapes and murders, he never publicly confessed to them. When he was sentenced, he showed no sign of remorse or guilt to make things even worse. He is indeed a perilous and criminal man in the history of crimes. Number 3 is Lisa M. Montgomery, who is known for a single crime. But that doesn't make it any less wrong. She is an American woman who was convicted of murder in Stinnett, a pregnant woman. Montgomery met Stinnett online in a chat room called Ratter Chatter. Montgomery had a fake identity and told Stinnett that she was pregnant too. The two women exchanged emails and chatted about their pregnancies. They decided to meet one day. This was when it all went downhill. Montgomery strangled Stinnett and abducted the premature infant from the womb. She attempted to pass the infant as her own child. When Stinnett's mother discovered the body, she described it as if her stomach had exploded. A day later, Montgomery was captured, and the day-old baby Victoria was rescued and returned to the care of her father. Montgomery is currently being held at Federal Medical Center, Texas. Anyone wondering about her sanity? She had 4 children of her own, whom she raised alone and was deemed sane by the doctors. She is unerringly one of the most dangerous killers in the world. Number 2 is Dennis Rader. He is famously called the BTK because of his modus operandi. All his victims were blinded, tortured, and later killed. He was raised in Kansas, and as a youth, he had killed many animals, which led to the development of violent sexual fantasies that involved bondage. He served in the U.S. Air Force and seemingly led an everyday life with his wife and 2 children. His first murders were of 4 family members who were strangled to death. He often collected souvenirs from the crime scenes, usually underwear from his victims. He killed 6 people in the same BTK method. He also needed to achieve fame. After his 6th murder, he wrote a letter to the local TV station asking, "How many people do I have to kill before I get a name in the paper or some national attention?" This coverage resulted in panic. Later in 2004, on the 20th anniversary of his first murders, the reporters covered the news, saying that the killer had been imprisoned or dead. He responded to this by committing his 9th murder and various evidence for the same. He was arrested in 2005 when his semen was matched that found in the first crime scene. Soon he confessed to the crimes and was sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms. This is a real saving the worst for last scenario. Rodney Alcalca is often described as the most prolific serial killer in the American history of crimes. His victims may number in hundreds. He toyed with his victims. He would strangle them, wait for them to revive, and repeat the process until they were eventually killed. Alcalca appeared on the ABC dating show called The Dating Game in 1979. Due to this, he got the nickname the Game Show Killer. Despite his dangerous crimes and 3 death sentences, he is still alive in the California State Prison.